Welcome back, everybody, to Just Keep Parenting. Glad you joined us again. We've been talking about positive intent, and we are a fairly, just by human nature, we tend to be a little negative with things. I was talking to my sister on the phone this morning, and one of the things that I've been having some back issues, and she said, "How is it?" I said, "It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you're acting better than you feel, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." And I think that's, we have to be aware of that sometimes we do have to act better than we feel. And when it comes to parenting and teaching, one of the things that sometimes we slide into is we react with negative intent rather than positive intent. And and you can go back and read the others, or not read, but you can listen to the others, the other videos, and we talk about positive intent and how important that is, right? So that children understand how to approach things. And hoping that, if we have more positive intent, that we'll be a more positive people. So anyway, today we're going to talk about, last week we talked about attributing positive intent to the things children do, right? And this week we're going to take it a little further and talking about how we can attribute positive intent to the things children say, right? One of the things I've been aware of in my life is the word hate. And I don't feel very good when I use that word. It's not a swear word by any means, but I notice that children are using it more and more in their worlds, right? And so I really have tried to help the children understand that hate is a really harsh word. It's a really strong word, and it has some meaning behind it that I don't think children can truly understand, right? And so as children use language to, as they learn, right, to use language to express themselves, often they say things that we may see, that we deem inappropriate. And so then it's up to us to teach them to use a more appropriate, a more acceptable way of speaking. And I think a few weeks back we talked about the little boy in class that was saying, "Oh my hell," and we had to talk about the environment and say, this is totally fine. At school, we just don't use this word. You use it at home, but it's not something that we use here because it sounds harsh and sometimes it hurts people when we use that word. And we've had to have the same conversation as we've talked about oh my God versus oh my gosh, right? And just helping them to understand the environment and the meaning behind it. It's not something that we, punitively come down on them for, but we try to explain the why behind it. I know as an adult, I still appreciate the why behind things that I'm asked to do, right? And I'm old. And so the fact that these kids still need that why, because they're just beginning, right? So, how do we do it? We do it the same way that we did when we attribute positive intent to their actions, right? It's not the actions that are out of bounds. It's the words that are out of bounds, right? So as we look at page 160 in our book, it talks about, right here, the situation says, your child says that he hates his teacher. Eric says, "I hate school. I hate my teacher. Mr. Trumbull is a stupid idiot." Right? Those are pretty harsh words. Dad replies, "Eric, you want me to know how frustrated you are at school and what a hard time you are having with your teacher." There's the positive intent. "You may not call your teacher or anyone else names. It's hurtful. When you're angry and frustrated with your teacher, say, 'I feel frustrated. It is really hard to deal with Mr. Trumbull.' Come over here and say, 'I feel frustrated with Mr. Trumbull, and let's talk about what's going on at school.'" Dad puts an arm around Eric and says, "I know it's upsetting to have problems with your teacher." Here's the empathetic part, right? "But you can discuss them with me and you can still be respectful." So it wasn't punitive. It wasn't, "What the heck are you thinking?" Right? It was, "I'm trying to see the positive intent in this. You're frustrated. You're using the word hate. You hate your teacher. He's an idiot." What they really are communicating to you, because they don't sometimes have all that language, or they may be in their brainstem, right, is, "I am frustrated," right? And so acknowledge that, talk about what we can do to move beyond that, right? So I remember when I first started teaching here at the university, one of the things that I was watching a video that was put out by NAEYC, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And there was a woman on there who has since passed away. But she talked about how when she would see children, starting to combust, she would say, "Oh, that sounds so harsh. Look at their body. Look what they're feeling, right?" And so she started to attribute what was happening to their body language and giving it words, right? So I can tell that she's really frustrated because her eyes are kind of scrunched together and she has tears in her eyes and her arms are folded, right? And so as we attribute that, then we help them, there again, the empathy part. But we also start to give language to what's happening, right, in their body. They have big emotions like we do, but we have had time to sort through those emotions and understand those emotions and then figure out strategies to move forward. They haven't done that yet. So our job is to help them figure out strategies to move forward and to understand what's happening. So, and we can also use these skills beforehand. This is my favorite part, right? Is we can attribute positive intent anytime afterwards with their actions, with their words. But the best part about it is that we can attribute it before it combusts. We can attribute it before it explodes or before they fall off the table, right? And so if we do it that way, then we can help the child be helpful rather than hurtful, right? And so we do this, there again, by attributing positive motives, right? The only difference is we do it before the boundaries broken, right? So as we direct them before the action, we help them practice impulse control. And who can't use a little bit of practice with that, right? There's a great story in here that Dr. Bailey talks about when she says, when there's a wife and imagine yourself on a diet. In a weak moment, you're heading for the leftover Halloween candy. We've all been there. Your spouse notices and says, you must really crave something sweet. Positive intent. Remember your desire to eat more healthy foods? How about a banana instead, right? Think of the willpower and impulse control you must exhibit to A, not divorce your spouse or hit her or hit him, and redirect your desires from candy to fruit. If you succeed, you have increased your willpower, reduced your impulsivity, and increased your self-confidence. It's a win-win, right? And so I just love the fact that we can help the children before, right? If you've got somebody that's, trying to get something really high and they're on something that may fall or they may, break a leg or hit their head or something, right? We can say, you know what? This would be a better way to come over and do this. I can see that you want to get that toy off of the plant. And so if you walk over here on this side and step on this chair rather than try to reach across, you'll probably have better luck. And that's not going to hurt you. You might fall this way, right? So prevent that before happening. There's a story in here about Mrs. Claus. And I have never seen the movie. Maybe some of you have. But she talks about how it was a young immigrant girl who lived with her father, and her mother were still in the old country. And so the little girl went to live with her aunt, I think. And she went to buy some eggs. And she went to buy some eggs to throw out the windows in hopes of hitting a police officer on the head, right? Mrs. Claus observed her sitting on the windowsill, just about to hurl the eggs for breakfast. No, just about to hurl the eggs, and said kindly, "I see you found the lost eggs. Now we can have fresh eggs for breakfast. How lucky for us that you are here." Mrs. Claus attributed a positive motive to the girl's actions, and a bond formed between the two. This bond brought out the best in the girl and provided the motivation she needed to shift her thinking and actions from being hurtful to being helpful. When you attribute positive motives to your child, you both feel better. You set the stage for positive thinking and a happy outcome, right? And, that's a little far-fetched. It's a movie. But I look at the children that we work with on a daily basis. And yesterday, just in debriefing, one of the teachers was talking about a child who was having a hard time coming in from recess. And she talked a little bit about the tough love that she used and how she wanted everybody to do this. And I stopped and I said, but we also need to think about the intent, right? This little girl's intent is not to be a bum, is not to be, a thorn in my side or pushing my buttons. She really is, in her way, trying to get some attention. And so I reminded the teachers, right, that we're there as we encourage the children to see the best in themselves. It also lets them know we're there to teach and guide, not to humiliate and punitively punish, right? And so I just think that we have to think beyond the mark, right? Beyond the mark. Sometimes if we look at what's right in front of us, we miss the mark. But if we look beyond the mark, then we see the children, right, as who they are, right? And they're little learners. They're trying to figure out life. They're trying to figure out their environment. They're trying to figure out all these cultural nuances that they don't have any idea about, right? And so explaining it to them, it takes time, yes, but explaining it and talking about positive intent helps them to understand the world that they live in and understand the why. So let's move forward as we help them before we have to combust, right? Before we combust, or maybe they combust. But happy parenting, happy teaching, and happy Friday. Thanks for joining us.